Hello and welcome. I'm just celebrating Susan's happy news of being reinstated. Although I am about 36 hours out of date, and yeah, whatever. I just wanted to have a little chat about the tribalism, really, that has been so rampant in this discussion, and I think it speaks to a lot of things, particularly social media and how it emboldens us and dehumanizes others. But also, Susan Oliver's back. It seems like she does have a bit of a sense of humour, and it's definitely a good thing. And it genuinely is a great thing because, they shouldn't be removing channels like that just summarily. There should be a warning. There should be warnings and process. But there's a lot of people who said to me that after commenting on her channel, they've been totally, absolutely bombarded with abuse from her followers. The other problem is that when you censor like that, people get a victim complex, which has absolutely taken root in this mini debacle. So anyway, I'll give you a chance now to hazard a guess at who you think may have been put in the frame for this heinous overreach of an authoritarian platform. All right, don't say it yet. Don't say it yet. It's the lebbyists in it. Obviously, it was us. It's all those people with fears that our justice system may have made a mistake, because clearly they're nuts, absolutely nuts. So clearly, despite broadly, I would say the majority of people I see as supporting a retrial or whatever, looking again at Letby's case, almost all of them. Well, no, I mean, maybe 3/4. There's a couple who find it just too funny to kind of make a serious comment about it. But like loads of people have been saying this isn't right. And I am one of them. I am absolutely one of them. I know Jabe was another one. Lots of people have been saying this. But still, we are some nefarious cult following with power. Like somehow, it's probably the Freemasons, to be honest. Lucy Letby's dad, all of that. It's probably that. Couldn't stop Lucy Letby being jailed, but my God, we can close down a YouTube channel for 24 hours. Anyway, it's a little bit galling because aside from the support that she definitely has received from those of us on the side of revisiting the case, I don't know how else to put it, there's people lots of different views on it. I am absolutely certain that she would never say the same if, for example, my channel were removed. This is the thing about when you genuinely believe in fair process, you believe in fair process. You don't support other people being treated unfairly. It's that simple. People should be held to the same account, and definitely encouraging people to feel like they are being singled out and victimized is never good. I have typed with many people over the last 24 hours who've told me that after commenting on her videos, they've been absolutely hounded. Yeah, that's not on, is it? I mean, I have a pitifully tiny follower count, but I'm just a woman ranting into her phone, and I've only been doing that for 4 weeks. If I heard that someone had commented and got all that abuse, I would condemn it. I would condemn it without reservation. I would have no issues with that whatsoever. There's boundaries, there's rules in life, there's standards that we should stick to. And I really do think this is the difference between those of us who do not believe she had a fair trial and those who would like to have her burnt at the stake. One side is committed to being fair and objective and looking at things from a neutral standpoint before making a moralistic judgment, and the other one seems to be coming from such a furious, visceral hate that even, for example, suggesting that one Letby supporter, as a Susan would call us, is lying when she says that a neonatologist was part of her care during her pregnancies. And if she isn't lying, then she was obviously drinking very heavily during pregnancy, causing fetal alcohol syndrome in her children. So let me go back a little. This woman who was being accused of giving her children fetal alcohol syndrome is me. I am on Twitter, and I had commented that he's such a smart, precise person. He wouldn't be so reckless. Essentially accuse a consultant of killing a baby by accident unless he was absolutely sure. And so one lady who really likes to see herself as the arbiter of truth in the Lucy Letby trial, we have mutually blocked each other. She allegedly attended the trial and is firmly of the opinion that Lucy Letby is a serial murderer of babies. We did not get on, and I find that little clique on Twitter some of the most abusive people I have ever come into contact with, like genuinely. And interestingly, it seems like everybody in that little group will just throw accusations of alcoholism out to anybody who disagrees with them. So, as you can see, my comment reads, several very experienced neonatologists, Neil Layton, cared for me throughout my 2 pregnancies. He's such a careful, precise person. I can't believe he'd be so mental as to write a report essentially placing a child's death on another doctor without compelling evidence. And he is. He's always involved with and very excited about new studies and new science. He lights up when he's talking about this stuff. I hadn't seen him for 6 years, and he totally remembered me, my partner, where my partner's from, my child's name. He's one of those rare people you meet that is just really full of energy and so passionate about what they're doing. Now, he is, at my local hospital, the resident neonatologist. There doesn't seem to be a glut of neonatologists. Neil is the resident neonatologist at my local hospital, and he deals with a lot of people, including me. And so, I'm disabled, and that makes life hard. There were issues in my first pregnancy, just that I didn't obviously find out straight away. It was not planned, and I was really frightened about medications. I didn't understand how protected an embryo was from the maternal environment. It's kind of in this egg, isn't it? It's sealed from the maternal environment. So because I'm disabled, I'm on medication. And despite being fully assured by Neil that everything was fine and it was safe, I still wanted to stop. That was my first ever conversation with him, and not only that, I have a long familial history of pregnancy and birth trauma. That includes my mum was left in a coma twice. I thought it was once, it's actually twice. After giving birth, my sister died after delivery. 2 of my other sisters, I have a lot of sisters, 2 of my other sisters had to have emergency cesareans, and both of my babies were born to crash teams, and the midwife during both deliveries had to ring the alarm a couple of times because of deceleration in my baby's heart rate, which was linked to the use of syntocinon. Now, I definitely would have had a cesarean both times, but it would have been very dangerous for me. It's not an option for everybody. I definitely did not want to go through with a natural birth, but it was ultimately by far the safest thing to do. I had all sorts of complications like a hemorrhage. One of my babies was footling breech, so she needed turning while in the uterus, which is this incredible doctor came in and just turned her round. It was amazing. There's other weird things like I am rhesus negative, and I don't know. There's other stuff that's personal, and I'm not going to justify myself. But it was very complicated for me. It's very complicated for all the women in my family, and I mean, thank God I will never, thank God I'm not having any more babies. It is a horrific experience for me, the pregnancy and delivery. Neil Ayton specialises in fetal alcohol syndrome. It's something he's really passionate about. He's been in the Daily Mail before as lecturing mothers. Like, he's hard on it, and for good reason. It's a horrific teratogen. It really is awful. So, and I would like to add the caveat that, like, I'm not talking about women who have the odd glass of wine, although, don't do that. Don't do that. It's not worth the risk. Or I imagine there's subsequent fear that you've done something terrible. And understandably, pregnant women get sick to the back teeth of being told what to do and what not to do. Some of it is a bit silly, like don't eat soft cheese, whereas to my knowledge, plenty of women do throughout their pregnancies on the continent. Some of it gets a bit silly, but alcohol is a huge no-no. Just the effects are devastating. So these people, I think, deliberately misinterpreted and then misrepresented my comment. All of them are either blocked or on mute due to their awful previous behaviour. And that's being directed at me and many, many others. It's only so long you can try and have a conversation with people, isn't there? And generally it becomes pretty quickly obvious when somebody's not arguing in good faith, and here's your case studies. Anyway, I was screenshotted and added with how come she's saying this? She must be a liar, or she poisoned her children in utero. And this was then followed up by tagging in Mark MacDonald, Lucy Letby's barrister. It was an attempt to tag in Peter Hitchens. And what the hell? What is she doing? It is bizarre. And I think the thing that I found most telling, really, was the white knuckle glee with which they grasped this. I mean, it's just disgusting. Who really believes that a consultant with a real passion for a specialism only does that specialism in his working life? And how dense do you have to be to suggest that I'm talking about him looking after me or, caring for me, as if he was my obstetrician? There are all sorts of reasons a neonatologist will speak to a pregnant woman. Maybe I was suffering symptoms related to my disability that needed medicating because they were completely unmanageable. And he also advised doctors before I was released on what to look for in my babies relating to my disability. I had a hemorrhage, there was all sorts of stuff going on. He spoke to me when there were concerns that one of my babies wasn't growing very well, and it turns out she had a knotted umbilical cord. Thank God she is okay. But yeah, they really went for it with this, and it was one of the few times that I've really been genuinely upset. Now, this goes on, and I'm not going to go into all of it. I'm knocking out this video, like, quickly. So, yeah. The one you can see above, what was your favourite type of heroin? Which is sort of coupled with this ludicrous idea that heroin addicts even have a clue as to the provenance of their drugs. What the hell? I mean, and it's just so gross. The reason that they know I was an addict for a long time, and it's something I'm not ashamed of one little bit. Like, everybody who knows me is aware of this. Like, it was a long time ago. I've got better, and that's like something I'm really proud of. But yeah, any reason to seize upon this? So here he is again. I'll get on to why he's making odd references to me being battered by my ex. Or, I don't know, maybe I won't, because there's a story for another day. This is how these people behave. That's my point. Look at this. This is how they behave. As a further point, if I had drunk during pregnancy, I imagine I probably wouldn't mention Neil Ayton, because his interest in fetal alcohol syndrome is well known. Like, he's one of the leading voices in the country. And if I had drunk during my pregnancies, my children would be disabled. And I very much doubt I'd be wanting to correlate myself, with a specialist in fetal alcohol syndrome. And it's at least going to bring up some awkward looks, isn't it? Yeah, I wouldn't bring that up. I think if I had anything to be ashamed of, I wouldn't have. And in saying this, despite the horrific effects, I don't want to be like dumping on pregnant women with alcoholism, because that won't help. Addiction's like a cross between possession, a deep kind of depression and mental illness, and a sort of obsessive compulsive disorder, and it is almost always rooted in trauma, in my experience. I've known a lot of addicts over the years, and it is, there's something that has gone very, very wrong for you to hurt yourself in such a way. And so to heap more shame on these women is not the way forward. It will not help their babies. There are things that do help, and we should be focusing on those, because otherwise we're dealing with a lot of very hurt babies. But I mean, all of this is besides the point. My addiction, the only reason they know about it is because I talk about it, and previously I have been absolutely deluged in really, really nasty gifs of people injecting the drug, or like loads of them. I don't think they're suitable for showing on here, but I will see if I can find a way, because I think this stuff needs outing. So yeah, it's just vile. And why would you try and trigger a relapse in a single mother? Seriously, why would you try and do that? Do you have any idea what children go through when their parents are addicted? My God. You're already saying you think I'm an appalling mother and a terrible person. Why would you try and add that to the mix for my children, eh? Why? So this brings me on to another point, which is I was being followed. Well, no, in fact, actually, I wasn't being followed by somebody, followed as in a Twitter follower, not a stalker. So several months ago, I was in another row where they got really, really out of hand, and she put some nice comments up, and some of them I didn't see for quite a long time. But I thought, oh, nice one, cool. I thought, oh, she's cool, and I could see she was quite nutty, so I didn't follow her. But I did notice a while ago that she was hardly ever active. This account was almost never active, but just occasionally would spring up to kind of defend me, but was really quite nutty and abusive about it to people, which, to be fair, they entirely deserved. But, I was just a bit wary. Yeah, that was it. So just after this really horrible row where they were being unbelievably nasty, I went on protected, because despite blocking them, they were still commenting on, and they were, I don't know, they've got these people have so many different accounts, and that's one of the things they've done. One of the things they've done is make parody accounts of people on there that they disagree with, and it's just gross and such an insane waste of time. But it does tell you something about their character. But anyway, I ended up hitting protected and protecting all my tweets for about a week, and this woman said she tried to follow me. And this was after I'd come off protected, and she'd made some joke in a little chat I was on. There's a little chat group on Twitter with about 4 other people. But essentially it was the only people who ever really looked on it was me and her and one other person. Anyway, she'd made a few weird jokes about how, since she tried to follow me when I was unprotected, she couldn't see Sorry, it was still said pending in the following box. Like it was stuck on that, so she couldn't follow me. And I kind of laughed it off. It was a bit awkward. I guess my spidey senses were telling me something. So the other day, I, did the school run, blah, blah, sit down after 10 o'clock or whatever and have a coffee, look at my phone. And on this chat, there is a message saying, "Oh my God, look at what they're saying about you." I immediately said, "What the," and went and had a look. And just as I started, I quote tweeted this very offensive message. And I'd screenshot the first one that I showed you, just at the same point that she started doing it. And I'd noticed several times before that she's used my screenshots. Oh well, not several times, but I later noticed that she'd used another one of my screenshots in conversation where she was speaking really harshly, deservedly so, to these people, but I don't think it's what it seems. One of the people she was speaking to instantly said, "Look, your screenshot comes from the same phone as hers, like mine. Like, you're using Felony's screenshot. You're using the same phone. You're the same person." And she said, "No, I've used her screenshots." And it had been pointed out that the time and battery at the top of the screenshot were the same. And she was saying, "Well, of course they are. It's the same picture." So that all seems legit, yeah. She was also being accused of being another woman they dislike. And then this account, who I've blocked, but turned around and said, "But look, how come she reposted at this time and 1 minute later you were alerting her to it? How's that?" And it really makes me wonder what's going on here. I mean, for some of them, and we know they're running several accounts and also running very active Reddit accounts, and you just wonder where on earth they find the hours in the day to do all this. It seemed so sharp and so a bit staged. I really suspect that this might be one of them. Otherwise, it's a very creepy, weird bloke. I doubt it's a woman, but Babushka, that's what she calls herself, and I highly recommend blocking her. Yeah, it's just really weird. And then of course this assumption that I am this woman started really taking off, and that I think it seemed to kind of replace their glee that I had supposedly poisoned my children in utero with alcohol. And that seemed a bit odd as well. It was like, I won that argument, so then, it was really weird. I'm loath to suggest that they would actually invest that much time. Well, I say invest that much time, but actually, if you look at that account, it's hardly ever active. So it wouldn't be that much. It wouldn't be that much work, and these people invest crazy hours into this case. Not in reading up necessarily on the technical issues involved in it, but just on being as vile as possible to people. It is not the first time my children have been dragged into it. I've previously the registered nurse, actually, she claims she's a registered nurse. She replied that I was the same person as Babushka. It was really tragic to pretend I had support, to have to pretend to be someone else to make it look as if I had support. And that's not the only really shocking thing that has come from her. And to shine a little more light onto the situation, you might have seen pop up, I am in too hurried a state today. I was doing it during my kids' nap. Oh no, that's broken now. Okay, well, that was sod's law. Yeah, look at them. Look how they talk. Look at them. That post where you see Pope ask, why did my ex cover me in flour, etc. He's talking about me suffering domestic violence. That's what he's talking about. The others joined in, he got some likes, and nobody called him out for it, not even the alleged feminist, for my crime of talking about how I'd been in a very abusive relationship. Apparently it was just payback for disagreeing with them. I had put a post up about a woman who had been killed by her ex, like beaten to death, and he immediately responded to it. I think I blocked him at that stage, because I remember being a bit curious as to how he was there, asking where was my responsibility in choosing him. I mean, that itself kicked off underneath the post of a woman who claims to be a feminist, who said absolutely nothing, and I strongly suspect she was liking his posts. She claims to be a feminist, yeah, and she doesn't call it out at all. That's the difference between the two sides. I got quite distressed about it and was like, I've blocked you. I don't know, like, could you just stop it? Could you just stop it? It was really pushing me too far. And I was then called a victim. And I mean, I've got a load of screenshots on my old phone. I'll have to rake them up because I think this needs talking about. So, bearing all of this in mind, the absolute gall to suggest it's those censorious, outrageously vindictive Let Be supporters who have taken down this channel, when in fact almost all of us supported her being reinstated. And the fact that none of them call out this behaviour, and I am not the one to have suffered the most. People have been given a lot more harassment than me. But yeah. This is just what it's like on the internet, apparently. Congratulations, Susan. Genuinely do think it's good you've been reinstated, largely because it feeds a victim complex otherwise. But, you know, when we talk about Lucy Letby's internet history being dodgy, like as if looking people up is stalking. Just how squeaky clean everything else was. I really would wonder if the nurse I've spoken about was unfortunate enough to suffer what she has. How do you think that would look? How do you think telling a woman that her being ridiculed over domestic violence was payback for apparently being abusive, but for abuse that she would never substantiate? I mean, I'm sharp-tongued, I'm snipey, I'm not abusive. Or saying, I can't imagine your kids are gorgeous, you know, stuff like that. How would that look? How would that look if it turns out Lucy Letby had said that? Anyway, I'll leave that with you, and I fully anticipate a deluge of trolling comments and possibly the deletion of my account overnight, which I know everyone who I have spoken about in a critical way would wholeheartedly embrace and celebrate. Oh, and lastly, you couldn't challenge my point about Neil Ayton, could you? I made a decent point you couldn't respond to, so you went straight for the nonsense. It's okay, baby. I'm done now. Goodbye.